Last week I was part of a small pool of press that received an a7R III for an afternoon and evening of shooting, and while I don't have answers to everything you asked in my preview video yet, I've got enough answers that I want to take a few moments and give you my thoughts on this new camera. The AF improvements are huge. The a7R II autofocus, it does fine for general photography, but it wasn't something that I want to use to photograph any kind of action or sports. And I had a few frustrating moments with it on safari last year and ended up mostly shooting with the a6500. Now, with the speed improvements in the a7R III, I watched it quickly and accurately track erratically moving dancers, and that IAF works great for nailing portraits of still or moving subjects. As long as an eye is somewhat visible, it locks on. I don't even need to move the focus point near the eye. The camera just finds it and locks on. These AF improvements, coupled with that 10 frames per second now, up from just 5 in the a7R II, provide a camera capable of handling sports, wildlife, or other higher speed action. The 10 frames per second silently is a nice addition as well, but unlike the A9, you are going to see some rolling shutter creep in with moving subjects, even in still images. You can't read off that bigger sensor fast enough to avoid it. I'll be back with more hands-on with this camera soon, and we'll bring you some more examples. Make sure you're subscribed to be notified of those future videos. Ergonomically, it's an A9 body, so we now have that dedicated joystick. That's the focus point selector. That, along with the touch to autofocus on the LCD screen, make this camera much more user-friendly. I don't love, though, how Sony does their touch screens. I mean, it also functions as a touchpad. I'm happy to have this additional option, but it always feels just a little slow, a little off is the best way I can describe it. I do love the dedicated AF on button, as well as the AEL button, which I recommend you assign to IAF. That button works really well for that function, and the amount of functions you can assign to all of the custom buttons is awesome. Virtually every function in the camera is assignable to these custom buttons. That's up to 23 pages. Grip-wise, some of you don't like the smaller grip on these mirrorless cameras, and while it's been slightly increased in the a7R III, it is basically the same. And with larger lenses, you're going to feel like the space between lens and grip is a little tight. But you do have dual card slots now. You've got several options for how you use those. I will say, if you shoot simultaneously to both cards and are shooting uncompressed RAW plus JPEG, well, once that buffer fills up, which takes just only 3 seconds at 10 frames per second, you'll be waiting some time. Like the A9, the camera remains more responsive and shows you how many images are waiting to write to the card, but it certainly locks you out of everything except taking more photos and starting to review those that have been written to the card. The viewfinder, it's big, it's bright, it's beautiful, and it's one of the reasons why I love shooting mirrorless these days. Image review, shooting video in bright conditions, the viewfinder makes it easy to see what you're going to get before you even press the shutter. Battery life has been greatly improved. I think Sony's being conservative with their double the battery life estimate. I had the camera for over 5 hours, shot almost 2,000 photos, 20 minutes of video, and that used less than 50% of the battery. When I wasn't shooting, I was digging through the menus, using the Wi-Fi, playing around with it, so it was basically on that entire time. Now, related to Wi-Fi, the a7R III does drop play memory app support. So that time-lapse app, the smooth reflections app, any of those other ones, they're gone. And that's a bummer. I don't know why Sony made this decision. It's frustrating if you bought those apps and now you upgrade, you lose access. Image quality, it looks virtually the same as the a7R II. Maybe there's a bit more dynamic range, but I doubt it's a full stop in real-world conditions, despite that's what Sony's saying. And I can wrap this up by saying I've pre-ordered mine. I mean, I feel like I made compromises in carrying around the a7R II. Anytime there was action, I feel like I missed some shots. And the better autofocusing system, the better control, that alone is worth the upgrade for me. Notice I haven't mentioned the pixel shift technology. It seems interesting, but I think it's limited enough in its usefulness to be, well, limiting in its usefulness. I'll have more about that soon. Videographers, you've been asking me, there are improvements in this camera, the a7R III, but I think you should wait and see what the a7S III brings. Hopefully 4K at 60 frames per second. You can find a few raw files to download and more detailed write-up of everything I've just talked about in this video, linked right down below. And as always, leave your questions I'll have more hands-on time with this camera very soon. I can figure out if it's star eating or not, and we'll be answering your questions and responding to your comments. Hit that thumbs up button if you found this helpful, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.